Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Legacy Farmer, the podcast. This is your host, JC Young, and today I am joined by one of our key team members. Her name is Joni. Now, some of you listen to this podcast have actually talked to her before, but Joni is one of the key members on our team who handles all of the applications, the several hundred that we get throughout the year of members from all across the U.S. wanting to come into Legacy Farmer. Joni is the one that has the first initial phone call with them. So, Joni, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Okay. So Joni, just for the person listening here, go ahead and share a little bit more about your role and what you do here. And then we're also going to get into your personal story and how you got involved in Legacy Farmer in the first place.
Sure. So my role with Legacy Farmer is anytime a person fills out an application, they get on my calendar to talk with me. I just learn more about the background, come up with a specific game plan for each person because everybody's operation is totally different. I mean, similar problems, but different approach for everybody. So we have to kind of establish a baseline of where they're at right now and just come up with a game plan of what they need specifically, just to kind of, figure out where their spot is with Legacy Farmer, if Legacy Farmer is even the place to help them.
Yeah. So, and a lot of what we're doing there too, since we started Legacy Farmer back in 2019, which you joined, when did you officially come onto the team?
September of 2019.
Yeah. So just so everybody is listening to this, Joni was the first member that joined the team and has been absolutely amazing in helping us get to where we are now with more than 300 members. But since 2019, Joni, we received more than 3,000 applications. What would you say we're really looking for in the applications that we're bringing into this group? Because I know one key thing that we're doing is making sure that their core values align with not only Legacy Farmer as a company, but also with our entire network of 300 plus members. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I'm reading through an application, really what I'm looking for specifically is goals. Like, where are you at right now, but where do you want to be? I like to talk with people who have a vision for their life and know that they want more for it, whether they're in a bad spot or maybe they're in a fine spot, but there's that barrier that they cannot cross and they want more. And that's really what I'm looking for when I'm looking at applications are people who just want more.
Yeah. Why would we not want somebody who just wants to kind of be stuck where they're at and be comfortable where they're at?
Because it's hard to help somebody like that. Like when we're coming up with a game plan for them, like we got to be able to help you. And if you're just cool with where you're at, then there's not much we can do.
Yep.
Help. And I will not bring anybody in who doesn't want more and who we can't help.
Yeah. And so just so everybody who's listening here, like I said, we've brought in more than 300 applications. Our group is just surpassing 300 members. So in that time frame, we've had hundreds and hundreds of phone calls with potential applicants. But at the same time, we keep the network, limited, and we make sure that we're monitoring everybody that comes in, because everybody inside of our network now, the network is 10 times more valuable because every single person in there has the same core values. They're progressive, they're active, they're wanting to build, they're wanting to move forward, they're wanting to grow. They are kind of living this life of expansion, not only just in business life, but in personal life as well. Right?
Totally. Yep. And I think personal life is so huge in a lot of people, because when they think of business and when they're filling out the application, they're not always thinking of their personal life. Yeah. And so when we're on the call, we really dive into that. And sometimes people are kind of taken aback by, oh, I didn't realize this is what we're going to talk about. But yeah, you're right. This is a huge issue in my life, and I want to be better. I'd be a better dad, a better husband, all around better businessman or woman, and things like that. So
yeah, well, because you obviously know how that bleeds into areas of business and how you can't have the personal side without the business side, and you can't have the business side without the personal side.
Yep, 100%.
Yep. So Joni, talk a little bit about how you got involved in Legacy Farmer. I know we started with your husband, Jordan, right off the bat first when he first came in, but talk a little bit about, your guys' background or story. You got married, you guys are farming. Jordan works with his dad. Like give the listeners some idea there as well.
Yeah. So Jordan joined July of 2019, and I was working corporate at the time, and I came home and he said, "Hey, I joined Legacy Farmer today." And I said, "What the hell is Legacy Farmer?" So I had no idea. Jordan, we're a young couple. We knew we were going to be successful.
Yeah.
We were bound and determined that's what we were going to do. We were going to be successful and build an empire to pass down to our children someday. But we didn't know how to get there. We had no idea. He's working with his dad. His dad's, in his 60s and kind of has, been doing the same thing for 40 years. So Jordan didn't want that. We didn't want that. But we didn't know what to do differently. So, really coming into Legacy Farmer, we looked at our numbers differently. We started thinking and processing things differently. Our relationship is totally different than it was. Communication, everything. I mean, I can't even name it all because it's so much that we've worked on relentlessly for the past 2 years. That's just accumulated, and we're different. We're just different.
Did you notice an immediate change in him right after he came in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Because he had a fire under his ass. And it was just different. I know he was always motivated to do better and be better. He just didn't know what steps to take and how to be that person, because we're just in this bubble here in Morse Bluff, Nebraska. And we see the same people all the time. So.
Yeah. Well, and some people, you just kind of, you act the most like the 5 people you're surrounded with, right? And that's even truer in these smaller communities. If, you don't see anybody doing anything big or taking any challenges or trying to just accomplish anything, then it kind of bleeds over into your guys' life too. So let's talk a little bit about that, because you said you noticed the fire, right? How many guys do you talk to on a monthly basis to where, Jordan came in, how old was he?
Oh gosh, I think he was 26.
Okay. So 26 years old, he comes into Legacy Farmer. How many guys do you talk to on a monthly basis that are either in their 30s, 40s, or 50s to where you can tell that fire burned out a long time ago, and they're just like Jordan was, except add on a couple more decades there to their age and everything? What are some things that you notice about those guys?
First off, I want to say it's probably 95% of the people I talk to that are in that age that are burnt out, that are just like done. They don't know what else to do. It's interesting to talk to them and be that person to say, no, there's so much more that you could be experiencing in your business.
Well, why do you think they're burnt out though?
Because they just have no idea like what to do. They've been doing the same thing and they don't have a support system.
Yeah. So been doing the same thing for decades now, surrounded by the same people for decades now, surrounded by the same old coffee shop bullshit, basically now for several decades. The other thing too, is like with those guys, when you're talking to them, we already know the results that's impacted them as far as business goes, right? The results that they've created there, obviously they don't want that. Imagine now you and Jordan getting married at 26 or 25 or whatever, having a family. And then what do you think, your life would be like 15, 20 years down the road if Jordan didn't change anything and you ended up in one of the places of one of these guys that you're talking to on the phone?
It's hard for me to answer that because I feel like it wouldn't be pretty.
Okay.
Would we even be married? I don't know. Because we weren't married at the time when we joined Legacy Farmer. And yes, I mean, there's so many people I talk to who they're married, they're roommates with their spouse.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I feel like that could be a huge possibility had we not joined.
Well, and that's the thing is like, do you feel like a lot of the members or people that you talk to that are in their 30s and 40s, like they're kind of at that breaking point to where they haven't figured out anything to change in business? They spend their time working 18, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, to where they have no focus or time or energy on their family life at home. And they're essentially, I'm going to put it bluntly, but they're dragging their families along with them in this kind of path of misery because they're not changing anything. And it's this constant kind of, just wait till next year, honey. Just wait till next year. We'll get there. Prices will go back up. The bank will be easier on us. So like, we'll get to where we're going to get next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what I say a lot of times, even when I'm talking to guys and gals on the phone too, it's like, we're doing all of this for our families.
Yeah.
Everything we do, we're working ourselves to death for our families. And it's interesting because they're the ones who are put on the back burner.
Interesting. Yeah.
So,
It's a weird dynamic, because that's what you just said right there is so true, because not only does that, resonate with me and what my dad did, but with everybody listening to this, that's going to hit home with them as well, because you're so focused on the operation and the work. And Jordan, even growing up, he was trained and conditioned to give everything to the farm, right, and not really spend any time anywhere else. But you do that for a couple of decades, and then you meet the guys that you're talking to where the marriages are falling apart as well. And it doesn't matter what we tell them to do business wise, if we don't tackle those problems first, it doesn't matter.
mm-hmm. Yep. And a lot of times with the guys, if it's a man I'm talking to, I'll just ask him to get his wife on the phone, or we'll reschedule and talk with all three of us, because 100% of the time the wife has a different perspective. And, legacy farmer isn't only for men. There is something in it for women too. And working as a team, or learning how to work as a team, is huge when it comes to having a successful marriage and a successful business, even if the wife isn't necessarily hands-on in the business.
Well, talk a little bit about our Farm Wives group. If you could elaborate a little bit on that, and what you guys talk about there, and what the conversations kind of stem around a lot of the time, and how helpful it's also been to a lot of the women in their marriages.
Yeah, I mean, the Farm Wives group, really, it's hard to explain the camaraderie that happens in there. Obviously, there's a chat, and we chat back and forth inside of the network there. But we also hold, every other week, we hold a Farm Wives call, and it's a Zoom conference call. And we talk a little bit about everything, marriage. Sometimes it's business. Somebody has, like last time, we talked about office organization. How do you organize your office? What does that look like? Habits. We talk a lot about habits and taking care of yourself, and not just, physical, but, really taking care of your mind and things like that.
Well, and I know those conversations are valuable too, because, with the Farm Wives group, these are women that are spread all over the country, just like the guys are. But the thing is like, none of them have somebody in their world, or very few of them do, that really understand what it is that they're dealing with husband being gone for weeks on end in the middle of harvest, and only seeing them for a couple hours at night, and then they're up and gone before sunrise the next morning. Like, talk a little bit about how that's kind of been good just for the women, as far as having a release there and somebody to talk to that actually understands what the heck they're going through.
Yeah, I mean, even me personally, I have nobody in my bubble that understands my lifestyle and my thought process and things like that. So, I mean, I'm living it firsthand, just having that support system and people who truly understand. And there are other people in Farm Wives who have a handle on some area of life that I want that. So I'm just picking their brain and seeing how they're making it work and doing what works for me in my life. And we're all doing that in different areas of our life, whether that's fitness, meals, taking care of anything. And
and the thing is too, is like, men, let's be honest, a lot of men get very selfish, and especially the way farm boys are trained and conditioned growing up is like, I'm out here doing the important work. Your job is to stay at home and handle the kids, right? Or take care of that stuff. Whereas, first off, that's bullshit. You and I both know that's bullshit. Second off is like, these guys that are in that mentality, they don't even understand. They don't even have enough awareness to understand that there's somebody special in their life who they married is going through challenges. They don't even understand that, do they?
No. And it's one of the conversations we had a couple of weeks ago was like, how do I get it across my husband's brain that we need to go take a weekend? Like, how do I do that? So we were all just sharing what we do inside of our own households to prepare for a weekend away, and how to make it as easy on our husbands as we can. But at the same time, kind of hold them to the fire to commit to something like that, because it can be challenging to get them out of, away from the farm.
Well, and see, so it's interesting because, the husbands come in, they're facing business problems, right? But again, those are, I would argue, are the more important problems to get handled first, that they don't even understand that their wife is trying to actually work through and figure out how to solve, because that's what's important to the wives at home.
Yep.
Right.
100%.
Pretty crazy world that we live in. So, okay. So with Jordan and stuff coming in, and then you as well, like, what do you guys both feel, out of everything that we do in Legacy Farmer, you've noticed, you've been here since, pretty darn well the beginning. We've changed a lot of things as a company and things like that. What have been some of the monumental changes you think that have impacted our members and the value that we provide the most?
Yeah, for Jordan and I specifically, farmer metrics is huge for us. I mean, even just recently, Jordan refinanced his real estate loan, and we have 14 years left on the loan. Over that 14 years, we're going to save $87,000.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
huge. I mean, it's huge, but I mean, and his confidence tenfold. It's just like he's not passing up opportunities that are right in front of his face that he would have otherwise thought he wasn't smart enough or had the capacity to take on.
Where do you think, like even with the bank and stuff like that, you guys went in there, you took farmer metrics in there, you renegotiated rates and things like that. Do you think Jordan would have ever done that prior to coming in here?
No, because he didn't know that was a thing.
Okay. Didn't know. What do you mean? Didn't know what was a thing?
That he would have the leverage to negotiate anything.
Okay. How many farmers and ranchers do you think have the same mindset he did that are borrowing tens of millions of dollars across all of them that think, oh, whatever rate the bank gives us, that's the rate?
A lot.
Yeah.
90% at least.
So do you think his confidence changed just to when he figured out the numbers and what leverage he actually had? And then also too, just learning how the banks operate and how they make money and how their business, how that game is played.
Yeah. And just the difference in our confidence walking into the bank. Like we're not like scared that we're not going to get renewed for next year. We're not scared what we're going to hear because we know better than our banker does. So it's just interesting it's such a change. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of people too. They're overwhelmed when they first come in just because there is such a big learning curve. But the thing is though, is that's the reward at the end, saving what was it? 87,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just an interest. And that's just one loan when you guys are only in your 20s. Imagine how big those loans are going to be when you're in your 30s and 40s and being able to have the leverage to negotiate rates at that time. Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add, or is there a common thing and theme that comes up with guys that you're talking to or gals that you're talking to on sales calls when they're kind of sitting on the fence with coming into legacy farmer? Is there any common themes or anything that you think people should know before stepping into a conversation with you about what we do here and everything?
I've had a lot of people just on the fence, like, it's an investment and will it work for me and things like that. And the thing is, with most of these people who are on the fence and they don't join, they're calling me a year later in the same exact position. Yep. And then they say, Joni, I'm ready. And that's okay. But at the same time, I don't want that blood on my hands to, if somebody goes under in that year and they didn't take action and take a stand for themselves when they had the opportunity to. So,
yeah. Well, and let's talk about that a little bit because we just had members come in last week or 2 weeks ago that you literally talked to a year ago. They filled out an application and then you talk to them now and absolutely nothing changed for them.
Not a single thing.
Yeah.
And that's scary. And me talking to these people, I genuinely care because I hear it again and again and again. And I've seen what could happen if you don't do something. And yeah, you're right. Nothing changed. And so they did join. Thankfully, they joined and now they're making more headway in the first 2 weeks than they did the past year.
Yeah. Why do you think that is though? Why are they making more headway in the first 2 weeks?
Because we give them a blueprint and a pathway to follow. Yeah. And we give them the tools to start utilizing and the accountability and things like that.
Do you think it's valuable too for them to see just with all of our live chats and everything with all the members, able to see one, the questions that other members are asking, but then two, jumping on like our calls and seeing how much action other members are taking or what they're doing differently? Do you think that sparks new ideas for them? And now all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, okay, we need to do this, or I wasn't clear on this a year ago. Now I'm clear because of so-and-so that's 6 states away from me said it. And that gave me an idea of what I need to do next.
Yep. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point there.
No. And, figuring out what worked for somebody, what didn't work for somebody. And so you're not making those same mistakes. There's no reason for it. If you can learn from somebody else, you can just implement it that much quicker.
So let's talk about this just for a minute here. Some of the guys that you're talking to are in their 40s and 50s. How many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, do you think were lost because of bad mistakes that honestly, a program like Legacy Farmer or a network, I'm not even saying our tools, but literally our network of people would have helped them avoid making?
Well, if you even just consider purchasing equipment or ground alone, putting that into farmer metrics first and to see what it does with your position with the bank and what that does with your cash flow and everything like that. I mean, that could make or break your operation.
Yep.
You can't even put a number at the amount of mistakes that could have been prevented.
Well, and then too, like with Jordan coming in at 26, young in his career, like he has all these potential mistakes that he could make over the next couple of decades. And hearing from these guys that are in their 30s and 40s and 50s that have already made those mistakes, if all we did for that guy, for Jordan, was keep that in his mind to where one day he's faced with the same situation, he remembers so-and-so from this legacy farmer call that happened back in 2021. I'm not going to make the same mistake as that guy. It makes the entire investment here easily worth it. Yeah.
100%.
So I think people have a hard time wrapping their head around that until they actually get involved and see the types of conversations and hear the mistakes and learn from the other members so that they don't actually go make those themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Joni, so I just wanted to do this kind of introductory, podcast with you. For the listeners, I'm going to be doing more podcasts with Joni and Andy talking about specific situations that they're dealing with members, because Joni is on the front lines for us. She is the one handling all the introductory calls, and she hears these stories all the time. And that's just, again, it just reignites the fire in all of us, because that's why it's important, because guys, we literally have hundreds of applications coming in every single year. Joni's having hundreds of conversations throughout the year with these applicants and hearing all of the stories. And just like she said in the beginning, right, all the problems are the same. The approach to fixing them might be a little bit different based on your location or different factors that come in. And now we have more than 300 members inside a Legacy Farmer from all across the US. And so the problems and challenges that you're facing today, I can guarantee you there's a very, very, very high likelihood that there's another member inside of our community that has dealt with that exact same problem before, that can offer you leadership and guidance on exactly what not to do, because we know long-term, a majority of success is in learning what not to do. And that's just kind of what the facts are. So, all right, Joni, thanks so much for joining me today.
You bet.